5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're going. This is the Dangerzone podcast. Welcome, Learn.
What's up, Dan?
Hey, man. So, Learn is a guy I worked with, and he's still working. So, that's why you'll just hear his audio. And if you're watching this on YouTube, he will not be in the video frame, but you'll get to watch me. So, and you'll be able to gaze at all this beautiful art behind me. Which, dude, what's up? It's good to see you.
Yeah, definitely is. It's been a while. I think it's been a year since the last time I saw him, since my going away.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of this art, if you aren't watching, there's tons of traditional art, well, basically all different kinds of art pieces on the wall behind me here, and art's a pretty big part of your life. Do you want to, let's dive right in and talk about a topic that I know is important to both of us, which is how to deal with life stresses and what, like, you know, when you get curveballs in your life, things that happen, things you're going through, how do you deal with those stresses and like move on it? And I know art's important to you for that. Myself, I've used, you know, working out in the gym and actually doing these podcasts, making videos and stuff like that. But if you want to dive right in and talk about how art helps you with dealing with stressful situations or stress in life in general.
yeah, definitely. I think, my whole, I guess, intro into art started when I was like younger. I found myself essentially babysitting myself a lot of times just because my parents, middle-class family, growing up in California. And, it was one of those things to where, we were pretty much babysat by the television. Both people have working jobs, so no one's ever home. I pretty much spent a lot of time in daycare as a kid, and one of the things I loved to do was draw, ever since a young age. I mean, the big theme of my life, I think I've always liked to create, So with the art thing, I found myself in this job, and, we got our ups and downs here, especially, doing the job that I do. And one of those things that, art's given to me was a way out, a way out to express myself and to deal with every aspect of my life, whether it's happy things or whether it's sad things and frustration. And, that's pretty much what I use that venue for now. I struggled a lot for a period of time with, a lot of guys like to get it out, in the gym, like you said. I know that's how people deal with stress. I've always seen the gym as a stressful thing because you're always at that point in life where hey, I could do better. I'm not in that place where I want to be. I can lift more. I can lift heavier. I can be faster. And those kind of things kind of stress me out. It's definitely a challenge, but the art side of it, I was able to actually one day realize that, putting these things on paper and getting out essentially my story and my life experiences was something that became a legitimate stress reliever for myself. And I even find myself when I'm really stressed out, that's when I'm the most creative, and that's when some of the most powerful pieces that people actually look at and enjoy. They're like, wow, that's awesome. Can you do that again? It's well, yeah, I got to be a certain place in my life to actually, or feel a certain way to actually get those ideas on paper to where it's just to me, I love it because it's me. It's just me completely exposed on paper.
How long ago did you first come to that realization where you're like, this is... When did you kind of make that discovery, make the correlation to this is helping me with stress?
I mean, it was actually fairly recent, I would say, in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with the stresses of the job. Something came up and somebody wanted me to draw something for them, and I got back pen and paper because I really wanted to do this piece for somebody. It ended up being a tattoo design, and I was like, yeah, I could probably whip that out. And what ended up happening was I felt good drawing it. I was like, wow, this is something that I've been so dedicated to the job itself that you kind of lose yourself from time to time. And when I was drawing that piece in particular, like I was like, wow, I was like, dude, I remember this. Like I remember like these days and like, and it just clicked. I was like, yo, this is what makes me happy, you know? And this is what actually allowed me to like, you know, peel back all the layers of like who I am and kind of like just get it all out there in the open. So I would say it's probably around like 5 years ago. And since then, like, since I made that realization, I just like kept at it.
Do you remember what that piece was like?
Yeah, it was actually one of the pieces for one of my good buddies, like Steve. He wanted to commemorate like a memory from like a deployment, and it's essentially like what I ended up doing. I mean, that piece is actually above your head right now. It's that girl.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things, like Steve and I worked together and we became like, you know, brothers. And that's one of the pieces that like I want to draw for him because he wanted to get like a leg tattoo. I don't think Steve has got it yet, so
Yeah.
Steve, you still owe me that one. But since then,
Or he's
like,
just running out of room.
yeah, or he's running out of room. Maybe he's completely blasted.
Dude, I'm pretty much a blank canvas, so
Hey,
I'll
man.
get it. I'll get it before Steve.
Yeah,
Even though Steve and I have like 2 matching tattoos, but
I think we all have some matching tattoos.
yeah, dude. Matching tattoos is fun. I
No.
think it's a good way to go.
Definitely is. Like I got this, you know, my burner leg, as I call it. It's where I put all my like jammers. But you
Yeah.
know, everyone always asks. They see tattoos and they're like, "Hey, what does that mean? What does that mean?" You know, it's nice to like sometimes like look at something and like, you know what that's representative? A good fucking time. You know what I mean? A time in my life that like, you know, I was like, you know what, like this is tattoo worthy. Like
Yeah.
we're about to do this. So.
That's funny you say like your burner leg. Like I think for anybody out there that's thinking about getting a tattoo that like maybe you shouldn't care about that much, legs are a good spot to start.
Oh, yeah.
Like don't
Tattoos
Yeah.
are awesome because even if you know, it's not representative of like who you are now, it's definitely a testament. It's almost like, you know, writing chapters in your life. Like I have tattoos that like I don't regret any of my tattoos, but
Same way.
there are pieces on me that like, you know, I can look at and just like smile and be like, you know what, that was a good fucking time.
Yeah.
You know, memorable time.
Yeah. And the what was I gonna say? Yeah, we're talking about Steve. We have the same tattoos. What does pirate code mean to you?
Pirate code. Fall behind, left behind, man.
Yeah.
It was one of the things, you know, we used to fucking have. You introduced me to it. And it was just that point, you know, where you're out with your boys and, you know, you want to do your best, like, for your guys to try and, like, be that with them throughout the night. And sometimes, like, things happen. You know, guys have to, like, you know, like, go their separate ways at night depending on what they decide to do. And pirate code was a way to establish, like, self-responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when you call pirate code and that meaning, like, that's a serious thing. Like, be like, hey, pirate code is in effect. And it's like, what does that mean to me? That means, like, you know, at that point in time, I got my bros to lean on, but it was one of those fall behind, left behind kind of things. So at that point in the night, you know, pirate code's established. You realize, like, once you go your separate way, like, you know, you may not have 20 dudes backing you at the time. It's kind of like, you know, independent, you know, and I think that was, like, an awesome thing because, you know, there'd be times at night where you want to keep the whole group together for fear of, you know, they may do something, but it was a statement to kind of take, you know, some self-responsibility and be like, you know what, I'll be all right. I'll take care of myself. I'll see you in the morning. You know, we'll do what we need to do. But
I think there's a lot of applications in life in general for pirate code.
absolutely.
Where there's times to not necessarily raise the black flag and slit throats, because there's definitely times for that. But pirate code in the sense of the fall behind, get left behind, where in life you're not letting other people hold you back from doing things. Right?
Absolutely.
So like in that specific instance, it's like, hey, we're out in the town. We're not in a war zone. Like, we're not going to leave a guy behind in war. At least we're going to try our damnedest. Like, unfortunately, some guys actually do get left behind.
Yeah, they definitely do.
It's not like a totally true statement. Like, we never leave a guy behind, you know. Unfortunately, sometimes it happens. But we're going to try, you know, pirate code isn't in that sense. It's more about, like you were talking about, where we're not going to let the need for like everybody being safe and like together and, you know, this bubble to limit the experience, right?
Absolutely.
The experiences in life. So times that I've used it is like trying to plan a trip with other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're trying to get everybody on the same page and like, you know, planning dates, and this person backs out and that person backs out. And a lot of times you don't end up doing it because you can't get everybody on the same page.
Yep.
And I've found it's important to, at some point, somebody's got to say, hey, pirate codes are in effect. This is the date we're going to go do something. We're going to go out to this national park. We're going to go enjoy it. We're going to go have a good time. And guess what? If you can't make it, you can't make it. And nobody should feel guilty, you know?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't feel guilty because you're going to do something without somebody, right?
And I remember the actual like event that transpired, that whole pirate code. I remember, you know, we're all getting back and we're at a bar, and, you know, I remember me trying to do my thing like I've always done, is like try to round everyone, like herding cats. Like this is what my dad always calls it, like herding cats, because I mean I couldn't imagine how hard that is, but you know, it was essentially herding cats out of that bar because you want to keep your crew together and move on to the next place. So you have your boys, and you know everyone's experiencing the same thing. But you know, we had a couple guys like, you know, talking to some chicks, and like it was just like, you know, what are the rest of us gonna do? You know, at that point in time, they need to like handle their business. And I remember you screaming at the top of your lungs, like, I was like, hey Dan, we got to get these guys, and you're like, pirate code. I was like, what the hell does that mean? It's like, fall behind, get left behind. And like, I mean, you didn't even have to explain at that point.
Yeah.
We knew exactly at that point in time, like, all right, fuck it, like that's what it is right now. It's like we're all gonna make it home in one piece. I mean, we got as far as we did already, so
Yeah.
that was definitely something that like made such an impression on me that it was something that I wanted to, that memory in that instance, you know, looking back and like maintaining that for the rest of my life was something I felt like needed to be fucking permanently put on my skin.
Yeah.
So it was definitely good times.
Back to the art being a stressor thing. You mentioned like a lot of people use the gem, and sort of the way you found it not working for you was that you feel this like comparison of yourself or whatever, you know, like, you know, oh, I'm trying to like better myself. I'm never at this level. And I would say the way it's benefited for me, and this is kind of like not for you or whatever, it's just for like anybody that's listening, is the way it's worked for me in the gym is not focusing so much on like, this is of, it's important to set like goals in life and everything. But as far as like, I need to look like this person, or I need to be this ripped, or this like, you know, I need to hit this specific weight, you know, instead just going in and I go in with the goal of, I want to be a monster. I want to be strong as fuck, which is kind of a general thing, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm getting strong, I'm meeting my goal, right?
Definitely.
And it's still moving in a positive direction. And I think that's where lifting, and it can be like, for me, it is like a sort of a stress relief. This is coming full circle. I wanted to talk about input and output, and how you're talking about putting your thoughts and who you are on pen and paper with your art, and how for me in the gym, it's like I'm putting my muscles to work to push this weight from here to there. And that's like a simple input output. And for me, that's like where the stress release comes. And I think it's important to maintain that balance of constantly putting stuff out, like creating, whether that's like you're creating movement or like moving weights, or you're creating videos on YouTube, or creating art, like in whatever form you find it. I think it's important to be creative and to put outwards into the world. Did you like want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I think like definitely like creating, like one of the things that I get from my artwork when I look at a piece and I'm satisfied with it is that satisfaction. I mean, us as humans, you know, everybody lives for some type of job or satisfaction, whether it's job satisfaction or, you know, personal satisfaction, like whatever it is. And everyone always like strives to that. But I mean, that's one thing I think in our society. Like, you know, it's sort of me like giving back too. Like, I've experienced a lot of things in my life that, you know, I wish a lot of people could, you know, enjoy with me, and I've experienced a lot of things that I wish nobody got to experience with me. You know, I hope it never happens to people. And it's one of those things, like you talk about that, like input and output. We're a huge society of like humans. We take, and that's one of those things that, you know, is difficult because it's so easy to take, but it's a lot harder to give back. And for some reason, like the way my brain processes, like I love like giving back. You know what I mean? It's just been one of those things that like that's why like I do the job that I do, because you know that if it's like, I don't know if it's necessarily like a servitude thing, but it feels good to give back, especially in a world that takes all the time. It reminds me of like one of my favorite lyrics from a song. There's a straight edge hardcore band in Boston I used to listen to like growing up, and one of the coldest lyrics that like I ever heard was the song itself was pretty like important to me. It's called Unbreakable, and it talks about
Who's the band?
The band's Half Heart.
Okay.
They're broke up now, but the band itself, like, you know, the song was written for this dude's dad, and in it he gives this like awesome imagery about how this individual like just gave and gave and gave. It talks about how he worked 3 jobs a day. It talked about how, like, you know, he's the man that plays while the ship sinks, and he's referring to like the Titanic, that guy who's like playing on the violin while the ship sinks, just to kind of like give back and to like calm that storm. And one of the things in there, the man who's singing, he in the lyrics, he actually asks his father, he's like, you know, what's the key, like what do I do? And the lyric that I was referring to, his father replies back to him, he's like, just love the world that doesn't love you back. And that's one of those things that like has always like resounded in me. It's always the reason why like I continue to do the things that I do. Or, you know, sometimes you feel like you're getting fucked by like helping somebody and you're never getting anything really out of it. It's always one of those things I refer to. It's just like, just love the world that doesn't love you back. It's because like that's my way of like giving back.
Fuck yeah,
I want to be able to look back in my life and, you know, be like, you know what? I love the world that doesn't love me back, because the world's a fucking heartless fucking place.
Yeah.
And you know, just imagine if everyone did one good deed to where they gave back. Just imagine how like the world would change. Like everyone would see things like a lot different. I mean, I sound like a fucking hippie right now, but I mean, I really believe that, like, you know, fighting wars is like awesome. Like, you know, we all love doing it when we're young and stuff, but like, it would be awesome if we lived in a world where like I didn't have a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It'd be awesome, but I mean, that's not the case.
I mean, unfortunately, like a utopia,
it's not. Yeah.
Is the meaning of utopia is no place.
Yep.
Like it's impossible. But yeah, it would be a much better place. It would. If you know, everybody did what you said.
But that's ideal. You know what I mean? We can never get to like what's ideal, but what we can do is, you know, if everyone, you know, just were to like think about those lyrics, like just love the world that doesn't love you back, you know, just like once a month, or fucking, you know, even a couple times a year, like those like little acts of just like giving back to like the world in any form, whether it's like artwork or whether it's, you know, helping somebody that needs help, like that will kind of like resound. And like after a while, like it kind of just, people see that and they're like, you know what, man, that's a good thing. Like I want to try that. You know what I mean? Maybe that will give me some type of happiness, you know, proverbial happiness.
Or just, let's say, like without theoretically like talking about a numerical amount, like, okay, we need, you know, majority of people to start doing this. If you're listening to us talk about this, right? Yeah. And you feel like you need to make a move in your life or whatever, start by like putting something out, creating positivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, that's where it starts. I mean, if you want to talk about just being able to better your own life, like stop taking in so much. Yeah. Stop just taking from everybody, and you know, all the destruction. You're taking all the negativity, the positive, like you're just absorbing, and you're, you know, it's not bringing balance to your life.
Because it's one of those things that, like, I've always felt like I've had to defend, you know, but what I mean? Because, like, you'll do stuff for people and, you know, maybe, like, you know, that people, that instance, like, you know, they don't really care or they treat you like shit or whatever it is. It's just like, you know, it's all right because you're not doing it so you can have them favorable towards you. You know what I mean? You do it because, like, it's the right thing to do, you know, or you feel like, hey, by giving back something, like, you know, there's a lot. It's just the same amount of energy as, like, taking than giving. And it's just, I don't know.
Well, do you think that, I mean, you say, like, you're the type of guy to do that. And I think some of it's personality, right? So a lot of it's, like, has to do with, you know, either how your upbringing or even, like, genetics and stuff like that can play a part in it. But at the end of the day, it is a choice.
Absolutely.
Like, I would say, you know, I'm a very generous guy, but I still have to, like, make that choice. I still have to, like,
Yep.
choose to, like, help other people or, like, put into it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is one of those things, like, everyone takes what they want to out of life, I think,
Yeah.
or different experiences. Like, different experience will throw you one way. I mean, like, one of the big, like, bubbles, I guess, is, like, always, like, the PTSD thing. It's like, well, PTSD comes in all forms, and, like, you know, some of the things that I do believe that there is, like, you know, trauma from stress, but I look back at, like, not necessarily, like, what everyone thinks, like, PTSD is, like, the war aspect of it, but, you know, like, I had, like, a rough upbringing, you know, for a period of time. Like, my parents got divorced. My dad was a drug addict. He wanted to fucking smoke himself. And, you know, we just didn't have that fatherly figure there like we wanted to as kids, you know, that perfect family. So, you know, like, growing up in that environment, like, I had a sister. She's, like, 16 months younger than me. And I feel like through that, like, whole experience in our childhood, I went one way with it and she went another way.
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, like, you know, after my parents got divorced, like, you know, like, from my dad's, like, drug addiction, like, I just, like, swore off trying any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually embraced, like, you know, like, the hardcore scene, and I embraced, like, being straight edged, where, like, you know, I just tried to live, like, a clean life. And that was all because I saw the other side of it, what could happen, like, sitting there, like, you know, calling my dad's pager or, like, beeping him, like, hopefully, you know, he'll go on, like, benders, like, you know, these, like, methamphetamine benders for days on end. And, like, you know, he was supposed to pick us up from school, like, you know, at a certain period of time, and he didn't show up. So we go to daycare, my mom picks us up, and then it's, like, one of those things to where, you know, what I took out of all that, like, really shitty childhood is, like, dude, when I have a family, I'm never fucking doing drugs or drinking alcohol or any of that stuff, because, you know, I don't want it to affect my family. Like,
Yeah.
I almost get, like, another chance to fucking redo this whole thing, you know? But, you know, I've matured since then, and I don't think, like, if you experiment with stuff, it's going to turn you into a drug addict. But on the other side of the coin, my sister was a little different. Like, she, growing up, like, she used that almost as, I wouldn't say, like, an excuse, but sort of as, like, a motivation to be like, well, I had, like, a shitty childhood, like, fuck this. This explains the reason I am how I am. And I went, like, a completely different direction with it. I mean, I don't know how that came to be, but it's just I pulled positive things out of it, vice the negative things.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still pretty fucked up, but
I got a
you know.
motivational speech I'm gonna get recorded and put on my YouTube page.
Yeah.
Where it's basically comparing life to a Bob Ross painting.
How does that work?
Okay, well, I'm not gonna spoil it, and because I'm really gonna make a video of this.
Yeah,
and,
for sure. We can hit it on another.
But I thought about it on
podcast.
my way to the gym, and I'll just give you the one part that I thought of is basically you're given this blank canvas when you're born, right? And immediately paint starts getting put on it when you're a kid, and that's based on your parents, whether they're there or not. Like, you know, your parents got divorced or whatever, so now you have, like, one parent, and then every once in a while the other parent comes around and throws some bad paint on there, and eventually you're working to the masterpiece of your life, which is the end of your life.
Yeah.
And that's when the masterpiece reveals itself. Well, the great thing about a painting is you can always change it.
Absolutely.
You can throw some other paint on there and cover up those things, and it's still a part of you. It's still a part of that canvas, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's not a matter of having to like ignore or block it out or like try and scrape it out of you, you know? Just like accepting like, hey, that happened and that's a part of this, but I can change what it is. You're still left with the choice after the fact, you know? And I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the one thing, because like,
Instead of just like telling everybody that comes along to you and point at, hey, see the spot on this painting where it's fucked up? Like, you know, instead of just painting over it, fucking fix it, you know?
and that's what I wish, like, I mean, that requires like self-reflection, which I think is pretty difficult at times, you know? Like, because even when I try to self-reflect, you always want to look at all the positive things you did and kind of shy away from the negative things that, you know, you have. Like, I'm a huge procrastinator at times, like, and that irks the fuck out of me because, you know, I like working, but I think I choose to do things that I enjoy, vice not doing those things that, like, I really don't care about. And that's being able to, like, look at those things, like, just like, you know, that self-reflection. I mean, one of my favorite Marine Corps leadership principles, it's funny they say this because I never thought I would like actually think about these things, is know yourself and seek self-improvement.
Yeah.
And I mean, that to me has been like huge over the past couple years. It's like inspired me to be better at my job, be a better friend, be a better family member, because I mean, if you're not trying to get better at what you're doing, then you're taking again, you know? And like being able to give back in the sense of trying to be the best person you can. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be the best person you can?
Yeah.
You know?
I think you hit a big one is introspection. Like looking at yourself deep and hard and not taking so much. Again, it's back to like the taking external, right? So it's hard to look at yourself and not use different crutches in life of input of like letting other people dictate who you are or like tell you, hey, you need to be this way, and looking inside and finding that in yourself. It is an exercise. Like it's something that takes work and I think it's almost easier to rely on these external inputs to kind of keep you level. But for example, like with myself and the brain injury and everything, trying to find a way to like work through that and going like deep into meditation and exploring things like that, where it's basically a lot of introspection, right?
Definitely.
It's a lot of looking at yourself and like, I have this problem or this pain that's paining me, and instead of looking external through like a drug or, you know, somebody else is going to fix this for me, figuring out in yourself, looking in yourself for the power to like fix yourself or at least be okay with it. You know what I mean? Work through it, and you're not relying on something external to you, which is a little different than this is what I was going to say is it's important in those moments to be selfish. That's the moments to take, right? Take the time to look at yourself and explore yourself and figure out what you need to do to be okay. And once you're okay, it's amazing like how much you're able then to give to others, right? Yeah. I use this saying a lot when I talk to people, is you can't help anybody if you haven't helped yourself first.
No, yeah.
And that's not a like, hey, I need to rise up, I need to make this much money or whatever, like I need to gain all this stuff before I can help like donate or help anybody else. It's if you're fucked up in a bad spot, you need to figure out a way to like figure that shit out.
Yeah.
And I think that applies a lot in relationships when it comes to like friendships or even like marriages, girlfriends, boyfriend, whatever. If you're not taking care of that shit that's going on with you, the stressors or whatever, through introspection, like figuring out a way, whatever that is, you know, then it's going to be hard for you to breathe that external, like start outputting positivity into them.
Definitely. I mean, I think expectation management is like a huge thing with that because, you know, I think when I was younger, like when I was trying to learn to just be like, you know, try and become a better person and to like give more, you almost like in the back of your head want some type of like, you have some expectation from it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, that's something I've tried to give up because you have to realize like why you're putting out. Are you giving because it makes you happy and it's the right thing to do, or are you giving because you secretly want something back, like you're taking
Yeah.
again, you know? And that's one of those things where like I think when I was younger, it was harder for me to be like, you know, my expectation management like wasn't there, so I'd get disappointed. You'd help somebody and like, you know, you low key, you don't realize it, but low key you have that feeling back, man, this guy doesn't appreciate fucking anything I'm doing for him. And then after I've like matured and stuff, like, you know, over the years into like, you know, how I think now, it's like one of those things to where like, yo, I give back, or I try and give back as much as I can. I mean, you know, we have those selfish moments where you're like, yo, fuck this, like I'm trying to keep myself intact, but you know, being able to like give back, it's definitely like a expectation management piece because, you know, it's hard sometimes. It's hard to like give as much as you give and to be 100% about it and then
Mm-hmm.
not to see any like benefit on the other side.
Yeah.
But the benefit is there. It's just that, you know, you kind of have to drop all those expectations and understand why you're giving. Are you giving because that's something you want to do, or is it because you're giving because you want to take again?
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, I think expectation management for that's like pretty critical.
Yeah. I would say something that weirded me out. I don't know if I told you about this, but I did I volunteered for a disaster down in Texas.
Yeah.
After I got out, and through the Team Rubicon nonprofit, it's like plugging veterans into like disaster response, like before Red Cross and all those people show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really cool concept. It's been really successful. But going to that, I went down to this flooding down in Texas, and like drove all the way down from Dallas down to like near San Antonio, and I was feeling good about it. It was my first time like to go do one of these things, and where I thought it was going to be a beneficial thing, like helping people, like this is going to be awesome. I'm going to feel this reward, you know?
Yeah.
It sucked, dude. And it wasn't the work or like what happened or like it was kind of this nasty side of that I discovered of like helping people where for me personally, it wasn't like anybody else. It was just like shit I was dealing with. It was like I was able to go there and do the like hard work that it takes to like do the flood. You got to knock out all the sheetrock and like pull everything out of the walls and shit all through the house. And like you're pulling all these people's belongings out of their house and like they're there, and it's like, but something about it, I was like crawling out of my skin. I was just like, I fucking hate this right now. Like I should be loving the fact that I'm like here with the other veterans, like we're helping these people. They're just like, thank you so much, like all this shit. But there was something about it. I was just like, it was like I didn't want to be around it. Like I didn't want to be around it, and it was like turning this negative thing. I was just like, I don't want to talk to these people. Like I don't like that they're in this like distress or whatever for whatever reason. And I guess that's what I talk about when I say it's hard to help people to the level that you're potentially able to when you're not okay inside. And it was all just like, it was all inside me and some stuff that I had to like introspectively work through. And now I'm in a place where I think I would be fucking, you know, perfectly fine in those type of situations.
Definitely.
But it was weird being somebody who like yourself, like I'm very generous. I love giving things to people, and I've learned a lot about managing expectations, right? I just give to give, like, and I try not to like. Yeah, there's times like it. I would use like tobacco for an instance, right? Christina was really good at keeping me stocked up on deployments with like huge rolls of Kodiak wintergreen. That's what I did when I was on deployment, and guys would run out because, bad proper planning. They didn't have anybody sending them stuff. So I always had a surplus. And dude, I would just like, somebody would be like, hey man, can I get a dip? And I'd give them a whole can.
Yeah.
And I never expected to get that in return. And yeah, sometimes I get taken advantage of, dude. Like a lot.
I feel that way.
But I would say, as long as you don't let people damage you by like taking advantage of you, like there's some things people can do to take advantage of you where it's like actually causing like, emotional damage or whatever. As long as you manage, there's a level of expectations there where you can give pretty freely. And if you can manage your expectations in that giving, it's awesome. It's like, you know what? They never paid me back. They never like gave me anything. Not a big deal. I asked them for something. They're like, no, dude, these are mine. Like, I'm like, okay, I gave you like several cans of, I may think that in my head, but at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I still feel the benefit of giving. It's never a bad thing. I don't feel like I'm at a loss, you know? I'm still in the good. I'm still on a path in life where, again, I think we could talk about the rocking chair test right now, right?
Yeah, the rocking chair.
Where I can look back and be like, you know what? When that dude asked me for that dip, I didn't say like, fuck no, bro. Like, this is my shit. Like, you should have planned this out. I can look back and be like, yeah, when that dude needed that dip, I gave him a whole can. Like, blew his mind, Yeah. And talk about the rocking chair test and where that came from, dude.
That was like 2014? Was it 2014?
Yeah.
Damn, it's a while ago. So the rocking chair test, man, like, we had, we were in a team, we were deployed, and there was a lot of like, there's a lot of in-team fighting and stuff like that. We got a lot of guys that like are with us, and some dudes don't think they deserve to like be there or whatnot. Well, we had one guy in particular. He was, he was not, I wouldn't say he's not one of us, but he didn't do the job that we did. And, but he'd be telling people like, hey, I'm associated with these people. Like, I'm the same type of dude, And that got on a lot of guys' nerves because, all the things that go into that job, like guys pretty much earn their right to be on that team, and other people get attached because, we love our support dudes and we need those things, So, we had one guy that was just like, yeah, I'm like the same as all these guys. And a lot of guys had problems with it. And one of our guys was just like, hey, man, like, don't be bothered by things like that.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting caught up on like the wrong things. He's like, because at the end of the day, he's like, everybody has to, pass the rocking chair test. And I look at this motherfucker, I'm like, the rocking chair test, what is that? Well, I wasn't the only one that was looking at him, and he kind of called us all in, the group of guys over there, and he starts explaining this stuff to us, and he's like, the rocking chair test is something that you can do at any given point in your life. You don't have to wait for something, but the real rocking chair test is going to be that test you take at the end of your life. It's that one moment where, he said, picture yourself on like a porch, like, rocking back and forth in your rocking chair, sun's going down and you have the people you have around you. They're in the house, like all your loved ones and stuff. And you're just sitting there kind of just self-reflecting. And when you're sitting in that rocking chair towards the end of your life, you're going to have that moment where you're going to question things. The things that you're going to question is, did I do everything that I wanted to do? Was I there for all the people that I wanted to be there for? Did I make the decisions that I wanted to? And at the end of the day, I think everybody they're going to have their own rocking chair test to where, there's going to be decisions in your life, and you may lose on those decisions depending on what you make. You may win, like some of the decisions in my life, I think I've lost a lot, but I've also gained a lot. There's some things I'm still trying to get back, But I'm not there at my fucking ultimate rocking test yet, but that's kind of how like I decide like what's the next step in my life, because I never want to sit there and look one day and say like, what if?
Yeah.
That what if question scares the fucking living hell out of me. And I mean, that's the reason why I am where I am today, is because I never wanted to chance it. When they were like, hey, you want to do this? I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll try it.
Yeah.
If I make it, I make it. If I don't, then it wasn't in the cards, you know, as long as I put my forth the best effort. But that rocking chair test definitely like made sense to a lot of us. And you're like, you're absolutely right, man. Like, let him say whatever he wants to say. And at the end of the day, like, you know, one of our buddies said it today, like, it doesn't matter if you have, you know, your death scripts and everybody's around you, all your loved ones, you're ultimately going to die alone, you know? And what I mean by that is you're going to cross over to wherever the fuck you believe in by yourself. No one's coming with you. And you, at the end of the day, have to be secure in the fact that, like, yo, I did what I wanted to do. Yeah. There is no what ifs. I was firm with my decisions and I'm happy about them. And if you're not, I mean, that's going to be on you at the end of the day. Yep. So I thought that was like a powerful, powerful fucking like imagery, at least in my head, to be like, you know what, like that. It's funny because, you know, recently in my life, those are things that like have come up. You know, I'm sitting there and like, you know, I have my own like mini rocking chair test like from time to time, and for some reason that story like resounds like true in my life, like almost always when I need it. You know, I got this fork in the road. And I'm just like, yo, what am I doing next? And I think back at that and be like, yo, if I don't take this opportunity, is it something that I'm going to regret? Is it something that's going to pop back into my life? You know, and there are things in my life that like I will just continue to get after because like, you know, you want it so bad, and hopefully maybe one day things will happen. If they didn't, at least you can say like, I legitimately gave it like the best I fucking could, and it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to, you know? Yeah. But, yeah, rocking chair test, man. Some fucking cold ass shit.
Dude, I can't agree with it more. That's something that has always kind of been a life guidance for me is, just like everything you explained, just every choice you're faced in life, like realizing like, hey, yeah, fuck a 10-year plan. Like at the end of my life, yeah, I'm going to have to like be accountable for all those. Yeah. You know,
self-accountable, man.
And a lot of people take that in the way of like, oh, I need to just be a good person or whatever. You know, like there's this idea of, you know, morality where all my decisions need to match up with this rule book and everything. And I think it's different than that. It's way more dynamic. It's sometimes you have to make a decision that goes against other people's moralities, but it's the decision that you're going to be okay with at the end of your life.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know. Like, there's decisions I made in 2011 that, like, I'm still trying to, like, get back, like, the other option that, like, I had, you know what I mean? And it sucks, man, because you're just trying to figure out, like, yo, did I do the right thing? Yeah. You know, it's hard to sit back, but, I mean, time will tell, you know?
I would say combat, like, really focuses this because you're dealt with these life and death huge decisions that you have to make like that, like split-second decisions. And there's a lot of mental preparedness that can go into helping you make the decision that you're going to be okay with after the fact. Yeah, because definitely. You got to make it just like that, you know?
Yeah, one of those decisions, like, you know, that comes to my mind was, so, like, my first go over there, like, I was young. I was fucking, you know, I was even just not young so much in age, young as in, like, you know, life experience. And, you know, like, I talked about, I had a conversation with my father about, like, you know, me potentially going, you know, out there and losing somebody. That was my biggest fear because, you know, doing what we do, you're the guy that's supposed to, like, you know, save these dudes or bring them back home alive. And, like, you know, you guys to your left and right rely on you. You know, everyone relies on each other out there. And one of the things that was hard for me was I had a group of guys, like, I had two choices before we fucking stepped out the door. It was either, like, to try and distance myself as much as possible from these guys. So in the case that, you know, I do lose somebody, I don't really have to. It's not that big of a deal to me.
Putting up a wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or my other decision was to get as close as I fucking can to these guys and know that I knew them, like, and I knew everything about them. And when they do go out, like, you know, I'd be able to cherish that. So, like, the immature me, like, young and scared, I kept to myself. I didn't hang out with those group of guys at all. And, you know, I kind of distanced myself, kept myself in my room. And I just was like, all right, this is how I'm going to handle it. This is my decision. Quickly, like a month in, you know, we start, you know, doing what we're supposed to be doing out there, and the shit gets, like, really real. And I quickly realized that, like, that was not the fucking decision that I want to make.
Yeah.
We had one guy, probably like 2 or 3 months in, he got killed. And then that's when I was just like, if that was my guy at the time, like, I wouldn't want to, like, distance myself or put this wall up with him. Like, I want to be able to know that, like, I knew this guy, like, he was my friend, like, I was close to him, and I can call him like a brother. And you can't do that when, like you said, you put up this, like, wall in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And those are just some of, like, the lessons that, like, you kind of learn, like, over there, because you're right, the stakes are super high. It's life and death. And, like, you know, it wasn't so much as a regret. I mean, I ended up losing a guy, but I was very fortunate, like, after we had lost somebody, that I quickly was able to, like, reverse how I felt about that. And I just started getting to know my dudes and just, like, loving them from who they are. Like, hey, that's my buddy's favorite song, or hey, this is where he grew up. And, like, just, like, getting to know those guys and just getting on a personal level. Like, I don't regret any of that stuff now, because, like, that canvas you referred to, yo, I threw fucking bad paint on that thing, and I was able to, you know, whitewash that fucking canvas again, and then paint something fucking beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because now my friend that I lost over there, like, I got close enough to him to where I can be like, you know, he was a good friend, you know? Like, and it's just shitty, like, the circumstances, but I don't have any regrets because of it. And it's a fucking awesome feeling, you know?
Yeah.
Especially at the end of the day when you're talking to his family and things like that, and you're like, hey, how was he, like, out there? And, like, you know, all these questions that come to mind when, you know, you're a Gold Star family. You know, now I wasn't that fucking asshole. We're like, I don't know, man. I didn't really care too much about the dude.
Right.
I kind of distanced myself from my guys. Like, it wasn't like that at all. It's like, let me tell you about this dude. Let me tell you about what he did. Let me tell you how important he was to the cause and to us.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, shit, like, telling the parents that, you know, they're bawling crying because they're just so fucking proud of that fucking kid. And I would have never had that opportunity if I, you know, went with that first option the entire duration of us being out there. So it was actually like a learning point.
And it's amazing how that applies. I mean, here we are talking about combat. Not everybody's going to experience that. But it applies so much just in life.
Absolutely.
And you know, in civilian life or wherever. I mean, we just, we were talking today about how we lost 2 special operations medics before their time came in combat. When I was going through training, we lost a guy in a, you know, freak accident. He, you know, accidentally shot himself with a shotgun, and, like, and then we just lost another guy who was in a motorcycle wreck, you know, and it is, those types of things can happen every day. People die.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the time. Death is a constant, dude.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always wait for your old age. And I think not having as much walls up and being free to really connect with people. I guess I can't say this for everybody. I try and stick away from, like, telling people how they live their lives, because every time I start talking about getting connected with people,
you can't generalize.
I think of, like, hermits who are happy, like, living in a you know, earth home, like,
the
out
Bilbo
by
Baggins
themselves.
of the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, maybe those dudes are happy, like, doing that because they're, you know.
No, yeah, for sure.
But for me, being somebody who's a people person, dude, it's important for me to, like, connect in with people, and I enjoy conversations. That's why I started this podcast. I enjoy conversations with people talking about stuff like this. That's like, it's deeper, and it's not necessarily content, but you're connecting deeper with the people you're talking with. And it's like you said, your friends that you have in, in the civilian world, you're getting to know them better. And if God, forbid or whatever, death comes for them too early, you can look back and say, hey, I really dug deep and got to know this person,
Definitely.
know? And that way you're not left with a regret. And so it's not something that you necessarily need to be worried about, oh, everybody around me is going to die and everything.
Yeah.
But I would say there is this beauty of like taking the time to really connect with people and talk about real shit with them, is setting yourself up to look back and say, hey, if anything happened,
Yeah.
or you just move away, right? And you lose
Yeah.
contact or whatever. At the end of the day, you can say, hey, I knew that person pretty well in the time we were together. Or let's say you end up in a breakup or something. Or like, hey, at least I got to know that person, right? And they breathed some positivity in my life. I learned some life lessons from them. They may have learned something from me,
Yeah. No, I feel you on that. Just one of those things, like, it's funny, like, I think we always, like, we try and, like, search for, like, people that, like, best suit us or whatever. But, like, I mean, we can only do that because, like, technology allows it, If we flash back to, like, the 1940s and World War II, think about if you were to, like, meet your wife, you'd have to write her letters and all this stuff, or, like, you couldn't, like, easily as hop on a plane, or say even, like, further back,
Yeah.
It's the people, like, around you that, like, somehow your life has, like, put you and that person together. Like, those are the things I, like, just try and treasure, you know what I mean? Because, like, dude, I never knew I was going to fucking meet you and then, like, be friends with you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things, like, people don't embrace those connections enough. They like just to take it for granted, because it's just like, oh, well, this person's in my life for, like, this period of time. Then after that, like, yeah, we'll move on and, like, this and that. It's just like, well, if you, like, sit there and, like, actually treasure those people and, invest into them, those people end up becoming, like, lifelong friends, or, your wives or husbands or whatever they are one day. But, everyone, like, we have all these things like fucking Tinder and Facebook and, like, Instagram and all this stuff. And, people have thousands of followers, or they dated, like, hundreds of people. But if you look back at all this stuff and realize, like, how many of those people are, like, really mean something to you in your life? How many of those people do you continue to talk to? How many of those people are you willing to actually be there for? Like, those are, like, the type of things you look back and you're just like, that's what it is. I don't need a gazillion of you. I need, like, a couple fucking awesome people and I'll be all right, And, like, actually, like, treasuring those connections, I think we fall short because there's so many other options out there,
Yeah.
Well, I'll do something, I'll find, like, a better friend out there who's better than you, instead of just, like, working on your relationship with those people. Because, you think about it, like, why would you continue to, like, search and search and search for, like, a good friend or a good lover and stuff, and, like, hoping that you'll end up running into that person one day, that you'll be like, oh, I'll be friends with this dude forever, and it's one of those things, if you just only, like, look back and invested into that friendship or relationship will be fucking way stronger fucking 10 years from now. You know what I mean? Just investment, it's just one of those, like, pieces that I think people fall short on because everyone has a lot more options these days, And it's just, I don't know, I think that's one of those, like, old school things, because if you're living in the Appalachians, like, it's all about in the 1700s, it's all about the people around you that you have to treasure and you have to work with and build those relationships to make them strong. But yeah, that shit's crazy, man. Because
there's a couple ways I want to break off from here, but I want to go back to something before I forget. I think what I was going to have you repeat, what we were talking about earlier, was the original Corpsman Raider, and what happened in Arlington, and, like, how it's kind of connecting, like you were talking about, talking with the Gold Star families and like how much that connection means, and like
Yeah, like those connections. Like, I mean, I've had a couple of experiences with like Gold Star families, or for listeners out there, families who have lost a member of or one of their loved ones in combat. You know, so there was actually a former Raider. He's got a pretty interesting story. I'd first heard about this guy from a friend. He was like egging me on. He's like, read this fucking book. I'm just like, dude, I hate reading books. Honestly, I'm just like, I don't have the vivid imagination to like see all this like this stuff. And you know, to me, books are really boring. But I definitely treasure them. I think books are worthwhile. This isn't like a speech to hate on books. It's just never been really my thing. So I have to learn other ways, you know. But yeah, books. He was egging me on to read this book. It's like Real Blood, Real Guts, and I was like, yo, why are you trying to tell me about this book? And he was like, it's important, man, because it's about like our lineage, what we do. And I was just like, how is this related to anything that I do, you know? And he's like, it's an interesting story. I was like, all right, I'll check it out. So I do some research on my own and find out that this guy, James Gleason, he was actually abandoned on, you know, someone's front door. He was actually a baby, like in a shoebox. It was just dropped off somebody's front door.
Shit.
Yeah, so, you know, already starting off on a good foot. And, you know, this family took him in, and he eventually found himself at the age of 17 asking his parents to sign off on, like, a waiver for him to join the Navy early. It was during, like, you know, World War II.
Yeah. Not nowadays.
Not nowadays, yeah. During World War II.
Yeah.
You do that, people lose their minds.
There's tons of 17-year-olds back then willing to join.
Yeah.
Not so much nowadays.
It's a different generation. But yeah, so this individual, like James Gleason, he ends up you know, telling his parents he wants to join the Navy, and they sign his release, and he ends up going to Navy boot camp, and he signs on to be a Navy corpsman, so a medic among the Marines. And he finds himself amongst one of the most elite units, like, in the Marine Corps, like, in Marine Corps history. It was the Marine Raiders. And he was 17 years old, like, fighting in the Pacific. Imagine being 17 years old and, like, you know, the warfare back then, like, you know, the only real tie to that you see, like, on movies, you know, like, it's not like fighting the enemy now. Like, it's you're fighting a world war. Like, there is an entire population, an entire country that's, like, fighting against you as a 17-year-old in an island hopping campaign, you know, fighting. Not only fighting, I mean, this is the day and age where, like, hey, your corpsman doesn't get the same, or your medic won't get the same, like, weapon system you do. This guy's running around with, like, a knife and, like, IVs that are in, like, glass bottles. And the technology back then, I mean, like, it's like, hey, we're going to put pressure in. This is before tourniquets and all this other stuff. So it's, like, humbling. Like, after I started learning about him, I was like, holy shit, this is pretty humbling. Well, when I decided to come down here, me and a buddy decided to look this guy up, and I wanted to talk to him because what I wanted to tell him was that there is a community in the military today that actually he's like a direct, you know, like, forefather of, like, what we do today, you know,
Yeah.
which is, like, you know, special operation medicine. And it was really, I was super stoked to try and meet this dude. I look him up online again to see where he lived, because he lived in the same state that I'm in now, and he ended up passing away in May. And I was like, damn. I was like, I missed that opportunity.
I would have loved to talk to this dude.
I would love to talk to him and just let him know that, like, what he did back then, there is, like, a community that fucking walks his footsteps from the path that he originally made, like, in the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty. It sucked, you know. I definitely want to meet him, get him sign a book, you know. Now that I, like, educated myself on this, and you know, just let him know that, like, because of you, man, like, we're fucking here today, you know. You started this whole fucking gravy train, and you know, so it was done. You know, he died and he was buried, and you know, a couple months later, I'm on a forum post, and I see, like, hey, you guys should check this out because this dude died. You know, maybe somebody can do something for him. And like, you know, I went on there and tried to correct them. I was like, hey, actually, he's been dead since May. You know, it's already done, like our shot. And they're like, oh no. We looked more into it, and his body was actually like I don't know, like his body was ended up cremated, and then he was going to be buried in Arlington. So this year we actually, or the end of the year last year, we ended up we got together, and I started thinking, I was like, you know what? I was like, if I can't talk to the dude, you know, and tell him there's a community that like he started essentially, you know, at least the workings of this whole thing, like at least we can like, you know, do him the honor, the same honor that guys get like at the units now, you know, when they leave, and how like guys get together and they honor him. And, you know, it came down to the paddle tradition. So, you know, we whipped him up something special down here, and like took a lot of time to like, you know, it was special to me because I'm like, all right, you're making something for somebody that like, one, doesn't know you, but two, you know, they did the job like, I mean, fuck, 70 years ago, you know, from now. And to me, that was like a huge thing. So I was like, this is an awesome way for us to give back, like to show his family that like, you know, there are still like young guys out there doing the same job. And, you know, we want to thank this guy, you know, and give him the same honor that a guy at our unit would receive. So we ended up building a paddle for this dude. And, like, I mean, I tried to think of everything I could to make it as special as it could. You know, we had, like, the Marine Raider colors, like, you know, weaved into the paddle. And, like, it was funny. I didn't have a white 550 cord. So I was, like, going through, I was just looking around my house for something that was, like, white, you know. So I ran out of the white 550 cord. So ended up like digging through my med bag and found like, you know, Curlex. And I thought that was so cool, is maybe to like do this Curlex like white underwrap. And Curlex is like actually what we use to staunch bleeding. Yeah. You know, you take it's pretty much like a roll of like, you know, like cotton webbing that you pack into a wound to kind of like stop that bleeding from like, you know, getting worse. And, you know, I thought it was a pretty fucking sick piece to throw in there. And then, I mean, I had the support from everybody. You know, the Raiders that I knew, they had contacted me, and, you know, the Marine Raiders, like, you know, that was the year that they received their insignia device. Mm-hmm. So they actually sent me down one to put on his paddle, and guys gave me like some Raider patches, and there was so much support to see. And it was just like, it was an awesome thing to see so many guys just like give back to a person that they didn't even know. And it was because of like what that dude did before, like, you know.
And he'd already passed. It's like, you know, anybody else could have easily been like, oh, okay, well, I wish we did that, right, while you're still alive. Yeah. But I really appreciate what you did by taking it a step further and honoring his legacy, you know?
It was cool, man, because I used a lot of elements that, you know, I had an opportunity to go to Iwo Jima one year, so I took some black sand from the Iwo Jima beach. It's, you know, one of the islands and part of the island hopping campaign, and we ended up, like, you know, putting that into his, like, paddle, put it in, like, a small locket so you can see, like, sand from Iwo Jima. You know, he may have not been there, but that's the same sand that, you know, the men he took care of, like, bled on and fucking sweat on, so it was awesome to put that on there. And then once we wrapped it all up, like, you know, it was definitely a project of passion for me. You know, I sat there and fucking sanded that thing all night, and I was just like so excited to like just give back to this dude who, you know, gave so much to us without even knowing it, you know? Yeah. And, you know, having the support from like all the dudes that I knew was just absolutely incredible. And we ended up going to his funeral where he was buried the second time at Arlington, and, you know, work was pretty cool to let me off to go do my thing. And I met a couple guys that actually, like, you know, flew out there with me, and it was just an awesome opportunity. I mean, like, we went there, and, you know, in attendance was like, you know, the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the Sergeant Major. They had guys from like head of Bureau of Medicine, and, you know, it was a small party. You know, it was very intimate. You know, it was his family. And you know, as soon as the ceremony ended, you know, we presented it to the family, and, you know, it just felt so good. You know, like, because they were just like, I mean, they were saddened. You know, it was definitely like a somber moment, but they were just. It was such a awesome opportunity to honor that man and like what he did, especially never meeting him. You know, like I wish I got to talk to him, but you know, the family was just super thankful, and you know, it was news to their ears that like there's still men to this day that kind of like walk their father's footsteps.
Yeah.
You know, in
What
present
he
day
did
war.
didn't die off.
No,
like,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that whole like idea of like, you know, guys being there to like take care of other dudes, like, you know, it's in our nature. So it's our way of like, you know, taking care of him, like, you know, and his family, to just show that like people out there like give a fuck. And that for last year was one of the like the high points in my life, because I was like, this is like a rare opportunity, but this was a fucking awesome opportunity to just give back. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of guys who's like, yo, why the fuck do you care about that stuff? And I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter like why I care. It just matters that like, you know, this guy's family gets some recognition, because that's a hard thing. Whether you lose him at 17 or whether you lose him at 90, it's still a big deal, you know? And
Yeah.
it was just all the emotional support from the dudes is just, it was fucking awesome.
Dude. So I don't think I told you this earlier when we were talking about this. I didn't get a chance. You know, I was a casket bearer.
Yeah.
And I worked in Arlington. And I want to say first, you guys doing that is a huge deal. Like, having performed in, like, they record all the ceremonies you're in, and I think when I left, my like write up is something like over 2,000 funerals or something like that.
Holy
by
shit,
the time
dude.
I was there, people were never there doing stuff like that. Like, military members there to like present something like that to the families. Like, that's something really significant and special. Like, that's a pretty epic move in my book. And having like seen a lot of funerals firsthand, and a couple notes. I do. Yeah, let's stay away from the depressing stuff. I was gonna say, you know, a lot of veteran funerals, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Like, or like very few people there, and I think that goes back to what we were saying about, you know, dying alone and passing off to the next life by yourself.
Definitely.
You really are left with like the decisions you made, and like it doesn't matter like how many people are at your funeral, because like let's say you're a really rich dude, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people at your funeral because everybody's trying to figure out.
But do they give a fuck?
Everybody's trying to show up and figure out who's getting the money or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily matter. Like, how many people are at your funeral doesn't matter, dude.
Yeah.
It's your life. It's what you did. It's the choices you made. Like, what masterpiece did you make your life?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter like after that, you know, because you're dead.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, I was thinking when you were talking about this, and I was thinking of how exceptional that was that you guys did that. And I was thinking about, that reminded me about the exceptional funerals I did. Mm-hmm. So not all of them were the same. A lot of times you don't really know much about the guy you're burying. It's like, while we were casket bearers, you seem very disconnected. It was just like, this is your job, you do it, and it was kind of good that it was that way, because you don't get really, you're able to do your job very professionally.
Definitely.
And like handing the flag over to the widow, and you're keeping your composure and everything. I still have the bearer's speech memorized to this day. And I think I've done this on another podcast, but as on behalf of the President of the United States, a grateful nation, and a proud Navy, I present you this national ensign in dedication of your loved one's service in the United States Armed Forces.
It's solid.
And he like set it in their lap, and they like salute and walk away. But some of the most impactful ones, one of them, I didn't find out till I got out of the military that this dude was a recon corpsman.
No shit.
So, this is just weird, dude. Like, so it goes back into like how you were telling this family, like, hey, there's dudes that are like carrying this on and stuff. That is like, it's so true though. Like from the Raiders, you know, then you had the corpsmen that were with you know, recon and other, you know, Marine special units, but like, so this Marine recon corpsman in particular, he was a really young dude that got sent over to Vietnam, and they'd found his remains with his brothers, like on this hillside in Vietnam in 2006 from, he died back in Vietnam.
Holy shit.
And they just found his remains like in 2005, 2006, right? And so they bring him back, and we had the ceremony of him and his recon Marine brothers. So there was like a couple Marine casket bearer platoons and one Navy. And it's weird. I didn't get it at the time. So I wasn't in a corner or anything. I was just a Navy, like Presidential Honor Guard casket bearer, right? And I'm like, I'm just going out to do another Navy dude's funeral. Oh, he died in Vietnam? Like, well, he's like a medic or something, I didn't like get the connection, right?
Yeah.
So here I am carrying this dude's casket of his like, skeletal remains they found and everything, and along with the Marines, and they made a big deal out of it, like, because it's a big deal. They find these MIA, or KI, basically MIA because they hadn't found their bodies, and they've found them and identified them and bring them back. Like, it's a huge deal. It was in the news and everything. And so we go out there and we do it, and it's just like another day. I was like, that was pretty cool, but something about it felt super powerful, and it was impactful. It was like, here we are still honoring these guys and laying them to rest in Arlington back in the U.S.,
Yeah.
after they died back in Vietnam, and in 2006, we still give a fuck. And a lot of people are there and like showing their respects and everything. And something about it, it just like, it felt emotional to me, and it kind of like imprinted on me. Right?
Definitely.
And so I even talked about how this was like an impactful ceremony later. And then when I got out, it was actually, I think it was on a Memorial Day. I was like thinking back of my time as a casket bearer. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to look in to the details of this funeral that kind of like meant something to me.
Yeah.
And I find out it was a recon platoon. Like, this was a recon corpsman that I laid in the ground and then later became a recon corpsman,
Yeah, that's
like,
insane.
So it was like this cool just like passage of like, it has carried on. Like, the sacrifice they made and like the example they showed. I didn't even know this, and I like something about it that imprinted in me without even knowing he was a recon corpsman. Like, we could talk superstition or whatever led me down that route, or like helped me along that way. But the experience of doing that funeral or whatever, he did pass. Like, even with his remains being brought back, like in just the last little pieces of his skeleton that are left, his journey like carried on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
And I just didn't realize that till recently. And I was like, dude, there's a reason why that was like so significant. But yeah,
It's deep. Yeah, it's all about giving back. I think that's what I guess the theme of this little session is, just like giving back instead of like taking. Like those guys like gave so much, and like the little bit that we can do is something. I mean, sometimes I don't think it's enough. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Me making a paddle for somebody, it's not enough. Like, I wanted to talk to him and actually like thank him while he was still alive. Like, I mean, imagine how you would feel at the end of the day knowing that like the job that you did, like someone still does it like 70 years later. It's got to feel so powerful, and like, not to mention like, gives you some type of like, self-satisfaction.
Yeah.
Like, what, I did that back then, and like,
who's to say he didn't know
yeah,
that?
I definitely think he did, but like, I guess me personally, like, I just wanted to shake the dude's fucking hand, be like, thanks.
Yeah,
because of you, like, you're a small piece of the puzzle, that like makes me who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a dude like I wouldn't have known if my buddy wasn't bothering me about reading a book.
It seems like a lot of veterans are taking up the torch of let's get a hold of these World War II guys before they die, and we're starting to get their stories. And I know there's a couple projects going on, I think like Veterans Project and like a couple others where they're like seeking these guys out and like sitting down with them and filming their story and stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important because, you know, there's a stigma against like, you know, speaking about what happened in war or whatever, you know, or not like, or just like keeping it all to yourself. And I actually disagree with that. It's, I think it's important to share your example so the guys later down the road can look to you and say, hey, like when you're young men or, you know, young women, they can look and say, hey, that's a good goal for me to be like that example is a good example of something to strive towards.
Yeah.
And then they're able to work towards that. And then in themselves becoming one of those examples. And that way it's carried on, you know, and it's not lost, right? Because if they never tell their story, it's never heard, right?
Yeah.
And it dies with them, you know, and it's just another World War II vet that died or whatever, you know?
And that's a lot of the things I think we don't like realize, like, is like, you know, history in itself. I don't know what they used to say in school, but like, you know, one of the reasons I think it's important that we learn history is like, not necessarily so we don't make the same mistakes, but almost like we can learn those lessons without having to go through them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, that's one thing I think it's like huge nowadays. It's like, you know, if we would look back at history and realize like, hey, we've done it this way before, like, let's try something different. Doesn't mean we need to like destroy this whole thing and stop trying. It just means we need to try something different, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've always heard like, you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. But people take that and they're like, all right, well, fuck it. I'm just going to go a completely different way with it or just destroy this whole thing and like it wasn't meant to be or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the case. It's just that like, hey, sometimes you might just need to readjust fire in order to get the results you need. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know, because you're already making that investment into whatever you're doing. So it's like, if it's not working, let's just try something else, you know? But like, I think we're quick to just be like, well, fuck it. We're not ever going to do that again. And it's just like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not the way the world works, you know?
Yeah.
Because some of those things like war has to be done, you know? Like as shit as it is, like people are going to have to like fill those seats to do that job that like a lot of people don't do. And, you know, it just gets back to, again, just like giving back, you know, like the whole history piece. And it's just, I mean, it's awesome, man. Like, it's awesome to see that, like, guys are reaching back to those guys, you know, and they're giving back something that, like, those dudes potentially would have lost. Like, I had this incredible experience to go to Iwo Jima, like, I don't know, fucking years ago, you know, and, you know, just to hear those guys, like, stories, like, you know, like, some of them were powerful stories, some of them were sad, some of them were funny. You know, this one guy, there was a bunch of Marines in the group, and then there was this sailor, and this is pretty cool. He's talk about like opportunities and like the rocking chair test, and just, you know, maybe this isn't your path, or you go down this other path and you don't know what the fuck why. But this individual, I talked to him. He's like, "Oh, I was a sailor," and I was like, "All right." So I'm thinking like Marines, you know, assaulting Iwo Jima. This guy's got to be a corpsman, right? Medic. Mm-hmm. And, like, totally not the case. So I'm, like, hearing this guy's story out, and he was actually a boat driver, or not even a driver, one of the boat crewmen. And during the siege of Iwo Jima, like, his boat ended up to one of those, like, U-boats, or not U-boats, like, I guess it was, like, Higgins landing crafts or something like them. Like, it got shelled and killed a bunch of people on side, and his boat would just, like, just disappeared off the face of the earth. But his body ended up getting launched on the beachhead. Like, he found himself, like, getting woken up by, like, another Marine. And, you know, they're stripping. He was saying they were stripping, like, you know, shit you see in the movies. They're stripping off like ammo and gear off this fucking dead Marine next to him, and they're giving him this shit. And I was like, hey, fucking get ready. And this guy's like, hey man, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I'm supposed to be on the boats, you know, like get me on the boats. I'm not supposed to be out here fighting with you.
Your boat's gone.
Yeah, your boat's disappeared off the face of the earth. And he was like tripping out. He said, he was like, no, this can't be. Like I didn't. This is not what I'm here for, you know. And he starts talking to me about how, like, you know, the Marine told him something to the effect of like, you know, well, you're here now, so, you know, this is what you need to do, you know. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily what you want to do, but it's what you need to do. And, you know, that guy, like, he gave back, you know. So he ended up, like, fighting all the way from, like, the flag raising, like, +3. So 3 days after, like, the flag planting of, like, Iwo Jima. Wow. That's just such an incredible story because, like, you have this, like, guy who, you know, he's, like, looking at this and he's like, all right, well, I'm support dude. I'm going to put these Marines on the, you know, on the beachhead and, like, let them fight. And it's just like, hey, that was not the case at all, you know. He's doing something completely different. Now he's fighting alongside these guys and find himself in a place that, like, he never thought he would.
Dude,
but
that's a step-up moment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just, like, completely, like, stepping up and, you know, one of those things to where, like, you know, it was his time to kind of, like, you put himself, like, in the face of adversity and, you know, he's giving back, you know, instead of taking away and just being like, yo, fuck this shit. Like, you don't need me. I'm fucking going into, like, self-preservation mode and becoming a fucking turtle and climbing into my shell. He's just like, you know what? I have this opportunity. There's no other way out. Like, I'm going to fucking give. He's like, volunteering his life to fight alongside with the Marines. And, like, I mean, like, to see those, like, heroic actions of those dudes just fuels the fire for, like, you know, the newest generation to fucking do what they need to do eventually one day, you know? It's not a matter of, like, if we're going to be at another fucking, you know, war front. It's a matter of when, you know what I mean? And, I mean, being able to be prepared and understand that whole, like, give and take. And it's just like when, you know, someone's knocking on your door, you know, you have that decision, am I giving or am I taking? Yeah. You know, and it's just, it was a super powerful story. I was like, it was incredible.
That reminds me of the we always stand up or we always step up, right?
Yeah.
So you want to explain that?
Yeah. So that was like a thing, like, my father, like, always told me, he always, like, referred to, like, you know, my last name and stuff. And he's like, you know, that's who you are, and we always step up. And, like, I mean, I was so tired of hearing that as, like, a kid, because it was always after I fucked up, or it was after some shit was, like, I felt like it was, like, too difficult, or I failed at somewhere, you know, and whether it was a test or, you know, doing anything in life, he's like, you always step up. And that was one of the things that I've always, like, reached, like, deep down into my heart. And, you know, when shit got, like, really rough, whether it was emotional, physical, or just life in general, like, digging down and always, like, stepping up. And pretty much what that means is, like, you know, trying to give it all you got, you know. It's one of the things that has definitely made it on, you know, the canvas of my skin, because it's always, like, resounded. I mean, you could look back, like we were talking about, and, like, look at all this bullshit and be like, man, it was fucked up as a kid. Like, I grew up in the ghetto, and, like, you know, my parents were divorced. My dad was a drug addict, and, you know, all this crazy shit. But, like, you know, always stepping up, it just gave you, like, you know, gave me something to, like, look back at it, be like, yeah, you're absolutely fucking right. Like growing up in fucking, like, you know, like, Los Angeles, like, I'm not proud, like, you know, I'll rock a fucking LA cap from, like here and there. It's not because, like, I'm fucking, like, proud of LA because it's such a fucking awesome place, and, like, you know, it's where fucking, you know, rainbows and fucking pots of gold are, you know what I mean? It was a fucking miserable place at some time in my life, but the reason why I rock that shit is I'm fucking proud, you know what I mean? I'm proud where I came from. Yeah. Because, you know, there's a lot of motherfuckers that don't make it out of there, you know? Or they don't get to become something. And, like, you know, I've had this awesome opportunity to kind of, like, make something out of myself because of some of the decisions I've made. But, like, that always step up is something that, like, has always, like just resounded like in my heart, and it's just like, all right, it sucks right now, but like we'll figure it out, you know. Me myself, I'm gonna figure it out, and if not, like I got friends to rely on to help me with this process, you know.
And We the Willing Collective is a lot about that.
Yeah,
right?
it's definitely We the Willing Collective is like, you know, a project. It's one of the hobbies of mine. I don't like to call it like a fucking work or a company or any of that shit. It's all fucking bullshit, you know. To me, it's a passion project, you know, and it's a passion project that's kind of fueled by my hobby of like artwork, you know. So We the Willing, you know, was when I was a young guy, you know, I'd heard this toast, you know. And you know, you guys can like look it up, but you know, We the Willing is just one of those things that it just talks about how, you know, you are a group of people that will fucking do anything with anything, you know what I mean? And you've done this for so long that you can, like, you know, any other task that you get like along down the road, like you can take it up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a powerful thing, and you know, in conjunction with like, you know, we always step up, like We the Willing just always helped out, because it's sort of like the chosen, right? But it's not like the chosen like when you talk about like in the sense of like elite. It's not elite people. Like We the Willing, I don't think is about that.
Yeah.
We the Willing talks about like just those groups of individuals who choose to do something different, choose to do something about you know, their situation, choose to better their situation. Like, I don't need millions of dollars. I don't need fucking, you know, like, you know, all these resources. I have what I have, and I'll fucking do the best I can with it, you know? And that's what's awesome, like, growing up in some ghetto-ass fucking slum, like, where I came from, like, L.A., and it's just like, you know what, like, I am who I am because, like, I've embraced, like, all the shit, you know what I mean? And just try to become something out of that, you know? And that's why it's such an awesome fucking thing.
So, like, back to this Davy dude who, like, got, you know, ominous dominance, you're a Marine now, you know, on Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Like, that was a stand-up moment, you know?
No, absolutely.
And I would say a simple application of that, because it's easy for somebody to listen to this, let's say it's not in the military, and they're like, well, fuck, yeah, like, I couldn't do that. Like, that's some shit in the military, like, you know. But look at it in the simplest form of, right, where we're talking about if everybody just worked a little more harder to give more, like put out a little more positivity instead of all this take. I think in everybody's job, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that may be, there's a big tendency to be like, hey, well, hey man, can you help me with this or whatever? And you're like, no, that's not my job, bro.
Yep.
Like, I only do these things, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And, or just like seeing something that needs to be done and be like, oh, well, that's not my job. So I'm just, not going to do it. If people just decided to like do a little more outside of their scope, one, it gets you noticed as somebody who goes above and beyond. But two, you're helping people in general, right? And
absolutely.
You're stepping up, and you're like, you're doing things that are above and beyond your job. Because that guy, that Navy guy, right?
Yeah.
He could have just said, hey, dude, I bow out. Like, I'm fucking done.
Fuck this.
Like,
it's not my job.
This is not my job.
Yeah.
Like, you Marines, like, you crazy fuckers, like, you go deal with this shit. I'm in the Navy. I'm going to go. I know my boat got fucking blown up. I'm going to go catch another one. I'm going to get back out. Like, this is not my job.
Yeah.
You know? And, but he fucking stepped up, dude. And guess what? In the rocking chair test,
he's gonna
fucking sit back and be like, yeah, dude, I stepped the fuck up. And
Iwo Jima. Absolutely.
Yeah, but like, again, in somebody's simple life, if you step up on a regular basis, and you know, become one of we the willing to step up in life, right?
Yeah.
When you're faced with these challenges, or just the challenge of, hey, giving out to other people, you know, breathing positivity, or, you know, making these positive changes in your life. That's where you work towards that rocking chair test, where you can look back and be like, all these decisions in my life have led me to this point where I'm okay.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's just like, You know, like with We the Willing, like the project itself, like I love it, man, because you know it's it's a way for me to like you know use my artwork to like you know de-stress myself. You know, so on a self level, that's what it does for me. But what I want like it to do is people to be able to see like you know the artwork and be able to like pull those feelings out of it and understanding like hey like yo I could step up too. It doesn't matter if I'm a fucking college student, I'm a single mother, I am a you know a firefighter, a nurse, a police officer, you know, or even a trash man, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter like what your job is, like by giving and you know like embracing like the we always step up and just like stepping up to the plate and giving back. Like I mean you do that you'll have a lot of like you know like self accomplishment I think, but also like a lot of self satisfaction just knowing that you like you did that, because you're absolutely right, there is a lot of people out there who are just like yo fuck this isn't my job. You know what I mean? I mean there's a lot of things that sometimes like you know I'm guilty of like you know questioning the fact like is this really my job, you know what I mean? But then I think about it, it's like, well, if I don't do it, who else is going to fucking do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I didn't fucking raise my hand to do, like, what we fucking do, you know, that means somebody else is going to have to take that place.
Or leaving things worse for the people that come after you, right?
Absolutely.
So, like, these guys, right?
Yeah.
That have left their legacy that we're still working off of, right? We're looking at these guys and what they did, and we're trying to replicate that in our modern terms, right?
Yeah.
And so it goes back to like the presence of that is like the more immediacy of that of, hey, I used to work this job, and as I'm leaving it, right, you're always in these transitions in life of, you know, leaving one thing or going to another. Or if you're not there, you will come to a transition point at some point, you know?
Yeah.
And are you leaving that better than you found it? Are you leaving it and still like, you know, paying it back to the things that have led you to success in your life?
Yeah, definitely,
you know?
the giving back.
Because again, it's a choice, like you said, is, you know, and it's something that I struggle with too. I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah,
it's like, is this within my wheelhouse? Or, okay, I'm done with that. Like I can forget about it, and that's their fucking problem now.
Yep.
You know, like
and I'll tell you, it's definitely not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, the negative sides of it. I mean, we've talked about it. Like you feel like you're fucking used all the time.
Yeah.
You feel like nobody gives a fuck. But like, you got to think about like why you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like that's what's like key when you have those like moments of being like, yo, I've given it all I can. Sometimes you have, and sometimes it's when you need to like, you know, try a different direction. You know what I mean? Or come about it a different way. You know, you don't have to abandon the whole thing and say like, hey, fuck this. I did step up. I fucking, you know, we always step up. I fucking did every time I can. It's like, cool, dude, you did, but like, you know, what's next? You know, you're just gonna continue with that like negative mindset, or are you just gonna keep on like, or are you gonna come at it from a different way?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that like, you know, I see on a day to day, because you hear that a lot. Dude, I've done everything for these motherfuckers, or I've given it up, and like, you know, I've done this for so long, and like, you know, I'm guilty of it sometimes, because I'm like, yo, I've given so much, like, why the fuck am I not getting anything back? And then you realize like, why are you giving again? Are you giving to take, or are you giving to give?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to kind of check yourself and be like, you know what? It's okay. It's okay if fucking sometimes I don't get what I want out of it, because that's not the point. The point is to fucking like keep that forward momentum and keep trying to make your surroundings better and the people around you, build them up to be better people. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I only got one life, man. So I might as well try and like do the best I can with it, you know? So it's just all about like, you know, just that whole giving back piece. But definitely like, you know, like it's this whole project has been like an awesome experience, because I've had people out of the woodwork just talk to me and be like, yo, I fucking get it. Like, this is awesome. And I'm just like, all right, what I fucking empower those guys to do is like, hey, pass it on, man. Like, if you get it, get other people to fucking get on it. You know what I mean? Get other people to step up where it is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this thing is not just specific to one community. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point, and it's hard for me to like. Sometimes it's really hard to self promote. You know, you're like, oh hey, share my shit or whatever. But really, with these podcasts, we're talking about a lot of stuff that people can benefit from, right?
Absolutely.
Especially like some of the last ones I've done with my brother and everything. I would say, like you said, if you come across something that benefits you, share it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Share it with others, because guess what? That means somebody else most likely will also benefit from it. Not everybody is, right? Yeah. So like these podcasts, if you find yourself listening to this, and I would say we're getting towards the end of this one.
Yeah, for sure.
There are some more stuff I want to talk about, but I think we're at a good kind of stopping point. But if this stuff like clicks with you, share it with other people. Like if you know other people are going through a tough time, you know, and maybe they need some encouragement, share these stories with them, or just share you don't even have to, you know, I don't care if you share this or not with somebody. Share your experience or what you pulled from it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like one of the things that I would leave this podcast with is just the lyric from that song, like "Love the world, it doesn't love you back."
Yeah.
And I mean, you can pull like "We the Willing" from it. You could pull "We Always Step Up." You can pull, you know, like, you know, giving back. But like, you know, at its core, it's just like, it's such a powerful statement of just like loving the world that doesn't love you back. You do it not to get anything back from it. You do it because that's what, you know, that's you giving, and that's the positive light. And like, you know, if people did that, I think, you know, it would just be a fucking better world all around, you know? Yeah. And then it's everything about you. Like, why would you want to live through your life and not make every thing and every person around you just better? You know?
I think you're right, but also I think it is also the key to happiness and contentness in life, right?
Hopefully. We'll see.
For yourself, because, you know, and yes, in that process, you're bettering everybody around you. And yes, we can't get a utopia, but I would say working towards that final masterpiece of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? You're going to find it through doing that. But
yeah, man.
Dude, this has been fun. And I'm dying to get some of it. I have, dude, they can't see it, but I got all this stuff written down that we're going to get into with some more podcasts. But I guess
sure,
you just got to stay tuned.
It's like a podcast mini-series.
Yeah, and be expecting some video shorts coming out as well.
For sure.
So, dude, this has been fun.
Yeah, if you guys want to see what we're about, we got WTWcollective.com, and then you can catch us on Instagram at We the Willing Collective. Just check it out and see what you see.
Yeah, and right now you guys got shirts for sale.
Yep. We got some shirts.
I'm wearing right now, and it's got this design on the back, right there, and yeah, dude, check out their stuff. I fucking love it. But yeah, all right, dude, it's been fun.
All right, man.
So let's end this one.